Response video to a couple of videos. One by TheAngryCanuck. Haven't heard from him in a long time. I guess I'll post links. The other one, Tommy from the Bronx. So I guess maybe I'll deal with Tommy's videos first because it was better. It's a better subject. It's that whole, one guy got to subsidize somebody else's reproductive decisions kind of thing. The whole idea that we pay for, we basically subsidize people to have kids, and we subsidize them by taxing each other's roofs over our heads and such. And it's not a very good system, not really very equitable or even sensible as social policy. But it all depends on what some people are after in terms of society. Some people think you can do this living on growth thing forever. Like there's no time. We really don't have to worry about it. 7 billion people, 20 billion people, 600 trillion people. Somehow it all doesn't matter. It's all going to work out. And, so they keep thinking it's okay. Let's just import more people. Let's just have more babies and everything will be just fine. And it's really, I think that's just idiotic. Especially with the fuel thing, with the oil, peak oil and all the other things, the greenhouse gases, all that kind of crap. It's time to really try to live on sustainable population, frozen population, maybe even reducing population, and have economies that actually work in that environment, not ones that are, perpetually dependent on exploitation, which is really the second part of this video. So anyway, I agree with Tommy that there should be some kind of system in place that puts, it's like any other kind of system. If you give something away for free, it ain't going to work. But if there's some sort of, you can subsidize it, but they have a copay on it. It's like the healthcare system. Yeah, okay, make it affordable, but certainly make people have to pay something so they feel the effects, so they're not likely to abuse the system. And the same thing should hold for having kids. instead of paying people to have them, essentially we give people tax breaks to have kids. Maybe that's okay for the first kid. And then maybe the second kid you get to break even. You pay its own way. And then by the time you have a third kid, now you start paying a child having tax or something, just to make up for the people who end up having 6 or 7 or 10 or end up on welfare and all that stuff. Because it's this whole attitude of having like it's some sort of right you have to create this new life that you can essentially extort the system with. It's almost like the police unions or some other union that, uses their necessity status to basically extort the system for privileges that no other labor group could extort the system for. And, a baby is a pretty powerful blackmailing tool. Put that up in front of you and say, do what I say or the baby gets it. It's pretty effective. But we should have systems in place to protect society from people playing that game. And it seems quite obvious rationally that one person shouldn't be subsidizing another person's reproductive decisions. You want to take on the responsibility for 18 years of maturizing? I'm having a problem with English lately. Maturizing a human being. Well, that's you're taking on that responsibility. So why should you tell your neighbor that he has to, essentially finance your recreation, your life plan, whatever the hell you want to call it? It's intrinsically flawed, reasoning. There's nothing, but that's the whole religious thing, it's that we've sort of, some sort of God-given right to, be fruitful and multiply, even though that doesn't make any sense anymore, as a practical fact. So anyway, that's a good subject, and, I have the website. I'll post a link to that too, kill all the babies. No, it's, what the hell's it called? Something. It's called something about not having more kids. It's not kill all the babies, no. So anyway, so on to the crazy Canuck, angry, that's it, angry. I don't know where he's coming from. So he's I don't know, somehow he wants to talk about my town and how I live and all this other crap, and it's really kind of rude. I post the local videos because, that's how I started doing this video thing, was because it was a kind of a, whatever. I was being the pain in the ass to the town government kind of thing, and just providing some news that wasn't being reported by anybody else kind of stuff and whatever. Well, anyway, so I do the council meetings. And yeah, so there was a fishing derby, and I filmed it, and it's not like I'm selling Mendham. I'm not selling it to the world, saying, hey, this is the way you should run your towns and your lives. That's really not what's taking place. So I don't need this bullshit. And I just don't, this guy should know what I'm about, and I'm not about elitism, and I'm certainly not a fan of the rich. So I don't know why he needs to play this game. I will say that there's real value in living in civilization. I mean, I like civilization. I like a civilized community to live in, where there is low crime, and there isn't a whole bunch of, see, this is where it gets tricky, where there isn't a whole lot of culture, diversity to cause frictions and all that other kind of crap. I mean, there's certain advantages to that. But there really has to come down to that, content of character and not color of skin thing, not ethnicity. I mean, there's a difference between being bigoted towards a culture, being bigoted towards a human being, irrelevancy. And I don't think culture is completely irrelevant. I mean, I'll just make the argument. If I was gonna move to another country, I wouldn't have any expectation that I could just run around being Joe American fucktard and not give a damn about the culture I was in, and having no respect for their traditions and the way they live. I mean, that would be rude, in my opinion, really fucking rude. And so in my opinion, when immigrants come to this country and they sort of, are kind of lazy about assimilating, fitting into the culture, learning the language, I think they're rude. I'll say that much about it. As for policy, yeah, I'm not for open borders, or, some people just think, because there's too big a difference between neighboring countries, and there's too big a difference between their culture and how people, the expectations people have and how they live. But I don't endorse gated communities. I don't endorse segregation. I fight for integrate. Oh man, these words today. Mixing in reasonable ways. So I don't get what your argument is, and it's nice to see you talk about things like exploitation, words you didn't seem to understand 6 months ago. So that's kind of good, because that's the big problem. It's the rich and exploitation that creates a lot of these problems. So anyway, I'm not defending the town I live in. I'll defend the fact that I live in it, just because that's just happenstance. My family, when they moved here, it was middle class town, and it changed. And so some towns go this way, the bad way, and some towns go the other way. And this one went the rich way. And I don't know if it's better, just because it's very elitist, and it's got a lot of corruptions, and the people aren't great. You don't walk down the street and just say, what wonderful people, because no one talks to each other. Everybody's kind of a self-righteous, egotistical asshole. So, it's not necessarily better. But some things are better, because, you don't have to worry about, people throwing bullets through your windows and shit. But, anyway, but I'm not endorsing it. It's just the way it happened. And I'm the poorest guy in town, and basically the town would have me out of here if they could legally get away with it. So, let's not have this pretense that I'm somehow part of this, structure, because I'm not. But anyway. This is just a messy subject. In Stickam I get really sloppy, and sometimes some of my rhetoric, sometimes I'm sorry about that, and people complain because of the Jew-Mexican line and that kind of stuff. I mean, I really don't have any bigotries towards people, I mean, I've lived with people that didn't speak English. I mean, not lived with them, but next to them. and I gave them every human part of myself I'd give any other person, and every effort to be helpful and neighborly. And so it's just bullshit to make that kind of accusation, because that's not what I'm about. But I mean, I think there's this reality that society is something you've got to build, you've got to engineer it, and there's things that are corrosive, and there are things that aren't conducive to joy, peace, love, and happiness, and all that kind of crap. And so there does have to be some rationality to how you structure your civilization, because it's not going to just happen by accident. We see what accidents produce, and it's pretty sloppy, and it can get really ugly. So whatever, I don't know what your point was, just didn't care for it. End of the time, so I will go.